Good Tuesday evening out there to everybody, and welcome into the Sports Blitz Lake Martin Sports Roundup Show presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill. Be here with you till 7 o'clock. Brett Pritchard and Randy Lee. It's rare that you and I are on this program together. It's usually a mix of Scott Hardy and one of us, or Luke up here, but glad to be up here with you tonight till 7 o'clock as you and Luke will have Sports Blitz Live at 7 to 9, post-Iron Bowl, post-fourth round of the playoffs, a big weekend all the way around. It didn't work out for a lot of people out there, especially Benjamin Russell fans. Randy, and I know that you and I will talk a lot about that game on this program. I will say this: we were able to go over to the Georgia Dome on Sunday, and a unique experience for our 11 and 12-year-old kids here in town to take on Dayville, an all-star team out of Dayville, and Dayville got us, Randy. They beat us 18-12. Got some great kids over there on their side of the ball. We got some great kids. It was more about the experience and having those two communities play in the Georgia Dome, man. It was an awesome opportunity. Can't thank Benny Snipes enough for organizing it and inviting the two communities to go over. And he really got things organized for us. And those kids will never forget being able to go out there and play on a field right after they watched an NFL game.
It's the 360 program that NFL does.
Play 60.
Play 60.
Yeah, Play 60.
Is this going on throughout the country at NFL stadiums?
It is.
Give a little update on how this works.
Basically, the youth program to encourage kids to get off the couch and quit playing so much Xbox and PlayStation and go out and give yourself 60 minutes exercise a day, okay? And unfortunately, even in schools now, Randy, PE is not like it used to be when me and you were in school. You don't do it. There's even some that it's not even mandatory really to go. You have PE, but you just, this country, you can see that physical fitness is an issue a lot of the times, but the NFL really has poured money in and really done a lot of things to encourage youth to get outside and throw the football, run around, be kids. Don't be subjected to sitting in front of a TV all the time.
Tell me what you saw over there. How was the setup for those of us that didn't go? Were you playing full field?
Oh, we played the whole field. And
play 100 yards?
Played 100 yards, and I'll kind of give a synopsis how it went. We started off the game, and they had two groups of two games going on half fields, younger kids before our game. We were the oldest group in there. So they got those four teams, 2 games played, and then we had the field by ourselves. And so we went out there and were able to play 100 yards, and we took the ball, we went down the field, and we scored a touchdown, and I felt real good about it. And, it was kind of back and forth defensively, and they had a big, tall kid, Randy, about 6'3", really phenomenal athlete. Caught a couple passes over the middle on us and got them set down inside the 1-yard line. I was proud of our defense. We're up 6-0. They had the ball inside the 1-yard line, and we stood up 4 times. 4 times they tried to score, and we held them. Ended up turnovers. You talk about turnovers any level. Turnovers will kill you. And we threw a pick 6, and then we had a fumble that was returned about 35 yards for a touchdown. So we had 2 turnovers for scores, not one of those where we turned it over and we were able to stop them and put our defense back out there. So they took advantage of that, scored 1 touchdown on offense and scored those 2 defensive touchdowns. We were able to score another touchdown on offense. DeMarcus McNeil, Randy, you're going to hear his name a lot coming up through the ranks at running back. Had a few of the people there at the Georgia Dome say, that tailback, you guys have something special. He had an 80-yard run, and then he scored from about 15 yards out, give us our first score. But lost 18-12. Dayville played really well. It's a clean game. There was only a couple penalties in the game. So just the opportunity. You look around, and you want to soak the moment in for a second. You look out there, and you're like, man, we're down here coaching on the sideline at the Georgia Dome. And next week, we're going to have the SEC championship game in that building.
Yeah, it's a great experience, and I'm telling you, last weekend for a lot of us, though,
I was 0-3, by the way. Yeah. I'm just going to go on and throw that out there.
It was a tough situation. We'd love to hear from you, 256-234-6221. I think we've got an early break here on this program, Brett, is Scott Hardy. We're hoping to have Scott back up here. And Scott, though, and we want to applaud Scott. He is the voice of the Wildcats on the basketball side this year, and if you get out and you see the games, he's the MC of the games this year, and he's excited to be doing that. So we may miss him a few Tuesdays throughout the month, but for the most part, if you're getting out, and we know a lot of you are, and you're supporting the Wildcats, they lose a heartbreaker last night as they get a majority of their football guys back and lose a heartbreaker in double overtime to Central Clay. I'm sure they'll get things turned around. Brett, I can tell you that. Coming from football over to basketball,
different story.
You know, I was lucky enough to play both ways in football. I thought I was in shape, and I went to my first basketball game, and my tongue almost beat the floor up. And within 3 or 4 minutes,
different kind of running,
it's
man.
a complete different game. You know, it's like soccer. Soccer's the same. It's nonstop, up and down action. You never quit. But I don't know if anything's like basketball. Basketball
it's
at that level, at the high school level,
you run nonstop.
I've talked to some officials here locally, and they say, you go call a varsity boys basketball game, and the up and down that you get, I'm wore out by the second half. And I would think the same. You know, I can remember just seeing the speed of the game, and we go to Birmingham to call the Final 48, which has turned into the finals now as they've added another class. You're blown away with the athleticism that you see out there, Brett. So it'll take our kid. What I'm trying to get to is it's going to take your kids, any of them that run deep into the high school playoffs in football. It's going to take them a while to get their sea legs under them.
Definitely. So, Jeff Hines inherited a lot of talent as the football. Unfortunately, I wish the football team was still playing one more week, but we'll take a break. We come back. Randy, you and I will recap that game. I know it's heartbreaking. I still hadn't gotten over it. I know you hadn't and our kids haven't, but it's a tough pill to swallow, but we had a great season. We'll come back. We'll talk about that game. Stay tuned. More of the Lake Martin Sports Roundup show presented by JR's right after this.
Are tires and car repairs sexy?
Lee Marketing Group, your comprehensive marketing solution.
Come back to you in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Sports Blitz Lake Martin Sports Roundup show here at JR Sports Bar and Grill every Tuesday night from 6 to 7. Usually have a ton of youth league teams up here kind of in the middle of seasons as football season closes out and basketball getting started up. No rest for the the weary as both Upward and City League teams start practice and start playing, and you just roll from one sport to the next and put the pads up and put the basketball shoes on, and then right after that you'll go into baseball and softball. So it just rolls on, or soccer if that's your sport. So I'd love to hear from you, 256-234-6221, to be part of the program here. Randy, we'll kick it over, talk about that semifinal game Friday night. As much as it pains us to go back and talk about that, started off the football game at Spanish Fort as good as you would want to start a football game anywhere, especially down there in a hostile environment.
Yeah, I was really proud. First off, I'll start. I mean, I'm thrilled with the way our kids played all year, but it's not just this year. I mean, this has been coming for a long time. I mean, this is 5 years that we've had wins in the playoffs. This is 4 years that we've had 10-plus wins as a program.
Did this senior class tie that senior class?
No, that senior class had 44 victories in 2002 senior class,
right.
2001 football season. But that senior class had 44 victories in their tenure. They had 2 9-win seasons on the bookends and 13-win seasons in the middle. And this class ended up 43 victories overall. And that's where I'm going with this. There's so many of us that were lucky enough to play over there, and we tried real hard and loved the program and never made it as far as this group did.
Oh, no.
It doesn't mean that none of us tried, but a lot of us did. So that's what I'm proud of. I mean, you go over there and you lose, that's fine. I mean, what's the big deal? No big whoop, but we're competitive. You don't want to play us. I don't know anybody in the state that – I think I think we can win 1 out of 2 against everybody in the state of Alabama, and that is really saying something right now. It didn't go our way in the second half. I think all of us watching the game would like to have maybe had a little bit more depth on our team.
We could have played with Hoover this year.
Oh, of course we could have.
That shows you right there.
I mean, I was watching the game in the first half, and Wes Coleman and I talked about this after the game, and I was sitting there thinking to myself, I think we're the best team in the state, period, bar none. And in the first half, I think we played like we were, and that wasn't the only half this year that we looked like that. We looked like that a lot. We wore down a bit in the second half, and tip your hat to Spanish Fort. Every time we go down there, they're willing to play physical with us, Brett. Mm-hmm. And very few teams match up with us and want to play physical with us. We end up imposing our will on teams. Danny Horn does a tremendous job teaching these kids in the weight room and teaching them to be physical. Tal Morrison does a great job on the line. Wes Tate does the same on the defensive line. It's tough to play with us, and Spanish Fort does a good job of doing that, Brett. But again, before we got into the ball game, I just want to say I'm thrilled where we are. Looking forward to next year.
Oh, there's
looking
no doubt.
forward to the next year after that. And
let me say that, Randy. I mean, you and I talked about this the other day. As much as we sat there yesterday, as a matter of fact, and broke down next year, and I'm going to go on and jump out, and Coach Horn, he'd slap me if he was in here, because he's a game-by-game guy. But you look at our schedule. I mean, you're going to see Opelika can come here. It's going to be a tough ball game, but the region hadn't changed very much. We're going to hurt losing Tyree and Trey and Tay and some guys here and there, but we're replacing a lot of guys, and we got a lot of guys coming back. And Kobe Maxwell may be one of the best running backs, if not the best running back in the state of Alabama next year. It's going to be hard to tackle. I love our chances next year moving on and getting right back to the same spot, having the same opportunity to do what we did this year.
Don't forget, reclassification comes up this year. We could see where we swap around. We'll be in 6A, and we need to be in 6A.
Could be in a different region, though.
I like our setup in 6A, very competitive, and I think it's the best region the best classification top to bottom. There's no question in my mind with that. It's a lot of fun. I think you get programs like Opelika and Clay Chalkville, and I can keep going down the list, but they care, they're good hometown feels. The Chelseas of the world, they show up, they're there for the games. And
I like those communities that bring your fans, man. It just adds to the atmosphere.
And I think clearly, if I'm biased, but I think Opelika and us are the best two, in my opinion. I hate it for Opelika they didn't get over the hump. They're our rival. But watching them play this year and watching us play, there wasn't anybody any better than the two of us. But it was a great season, Brett. But I do look forward to the years to come. And I think this senior class, if you watch what they're saying, they say all the right things. It's your turn now. We did what we could. We tried as hard as you possibly could.
And they'll want them to try to beat them.
Yeah, great leadership. And all you can ask for is just keep putting yourself in the opportunity to win. Really, I said that to you, 7 or 8 years ago. Living in Alexander City, it's going to be hard for you to tell me that we shouldn't be competitive. Doesn't mean we're going to win state titles, because we don't have the largest enrollment. We don't always have the best talent. but we should be competitive because we care so much about it, and we are definitely to that point. And Danny Horn has got a ton to do with
the
that.
Confidence. It's the confidence.
It is.
You know, no more than 48 hours after that ball game, you know, we follow and they follow us on Twitter and Facebook and a lot of the different players that we keep up with, and we talk to one another all the time. And you feel like they're your own kids. Jacoby Lawson and Nicole Maxwell, 48 hours after something, it hurt, man. I think it hurt us more than it did them. I really do. I mean, kids bounce back. Saw Chase Burton went to Atlanta the next day. I was drooping more than he was. He was smiling and excited for Satch. His brother was playing on our team, being in Georgia Dome, and he's like, he came up to me and said, "Brett, it's going to be all right." I'm like, man, did you play or did I play? But anyway, they understood. They understand in the maturity of those kids. Man, the immediately 48 hours later, Jacoby and Nicole were talking back and forth on social media. Man, we are not letting up. We start next year tomorrow.
Yeah,
there is no mourning period. We're not going to go into mourning for a month. We're not going to drown in our sorrows. We're not going to go woulda, coulda, shoulda. They're just like, man, we're moving ahead. So.
I know we're up against a break, but it's just a lot of fun around here right now. I'll be honest. I mean, you move on and you look past, but you never look past and go, well. You know, I remember when Bryant left. I won't forget. Bryant left, and
we said, well,
I'll be brutally honest. I said,
how's it?
Man, there's our best quarterback. I mean, we're going to have to find something. And then next year, Tyree in the first few games, he's a great athlete. Don't know what kind of quarterback he's going to become. He sure is a good athlete.
He matured quickly.
And this year, I'd argue with anybody that's willing to call me in and want to argue with me that if he ain't the best player in the state of Alabama, find him for me, send it over. I'm begging you to. He is without a doubt the best. And honestly, Brett, could be one of the best that we've ever had.
Oh,
I'm for real.
He is in the top
2 or 3.
Yeah, I was going to say 5 for sure, but he is in the top echelon of best players we've ever had. And I don't understand recruiting anymore. I don't know if I ever did. We've been doing this show for over 10 years, and we do a lot of recruiting stuff. We even had a recruiting special here one time at JR's, brought guys in from both Alabama and Auburn. We talked about recruiting. I don't know what people look at. I don't understand it. I don't.
Well, here's what I do know is you're an Auburn fan, and us Auburn fans that are watching what we put out on the field every Saturday, we definitely don't.
Yeah, it's
because
true.
that program's been ranked. I looked at the numbers. I think in the last 7 or 8 years, they've been ranked 7th or 8th nationally during that span of time.
Another top 10 recruiting class right now.
I just would hope and pray that if we could ever end up 7, 8 in the final poll every year. Now we have our shot in the pan. We'll talk a little bit more about that, Brett. But again, people miss all the time.
They really do. I mean, you miss it. Probably is more than you get sometimes, and there's really no explanation. You got, for example, before we go to break, a Byron Cowher, who was the unanimous #1 defensive player in the country by all 3 recruiting services. I'm talking 24/7 Scout and Rivals had Byron Cowher as your #1 defensive player, and he had a chance to make a play in open field against Alabama. Couldn't catch up to him.
And we'll talk a little bit more about this in a second, but Auburn's got to commit that Spanish forward. I'm sure he's a wonderful kid. He couldn't tackle Tyree in a phone booth. In a million years, he couldn't get a hold of him. So if that one makes any sense to you, good luck to. I'm sure he's a great kid. I'm not talking, and maybe he ends up with his hand down, and that's probably where he needs.
He's going to.
And maybe he'll be a good player in that. Yeah. But I'm just from what my eyes saw Friday night, not a chance. 256-234-6221 up against a break, Brett.
Absolutely. Stay tuned. More of the Sports Blitz, Late Martin Sports Roundup right after this. Welcome back, everyone, to the Sports Blitz Late Martin Sports Roundup show presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill. Brett Pritchard and Randy Lee here with you for about 25 more minutes as Randy will head over to Sports Blitz Live at 7 o'clock. And Randy, we'll head over to Tuscaloosa tomorrow to get ready for the Super 7. Again, I'm going to continue to cry over here. I would have been loving it so much more if our Wildcats had been in that Friday game. But we'll head over nonetheless and bite our tongue as we get to go over there and call those football games the next 3 days.
Well, I'll say this also. I don't think I'm going out on a limb that the High School Athletic Association wouldn't mind for Alexander City to make it in as well.
They would have.
Because by far the best crowd we've seen at a Super 6 or a Super 7 since you and I have been doing it. And by the way, this will be our 8th year with AHSA Radio Network. But by far and away, the largest crowd we've seen is Opelika. A couple of years ago, Benjamin Russell would have fought those numbers. And the association knows that. And not that they're cheering one way or another.
Well,
I'm just saying.
Well, they cheer for money.
Of course. I mean, because
it goes back to the high school.
That's what they're hoping to do. And so doesn't mean Spanish Fort doesn't travel well, but these newer programs like
they don't
Spanish,
have a lot of fans.
They don't have an alumni base. So you really have to think. I mean, to have a program like they have is saying a lot, because when we went up to Birmingham, 30 or 40% of the fans that I saw.
You don't think everybody in the last 40 years wanting to come to this football game Friday night to watch Benjamin Russell and play Clay Chalk? My Lord.
So it was a tough loss. So we'll close out this season, Brett. It was a special year. We had a great senior class, tremendous leadership in the senior class. We'll welcome Daniel Bland up here with us. He'll close out the program with you here tonight as he committed to Limestone up in South Carolina in their wrestling program. A two-time defending champion in the heavyweight division in 6A. But he's one of many special seniors that we had in this senior class. And I thought their leadership, we can talk all about their athleticism, but this is one of the tightest knit groups and one of the best overall leadership quality groups that I can remember. Can you? And you've been doing this a long time. I can't remember, and we've had good ones, so I'm not downing the others, but I can't remember a group that I thought I saw so many future leaders in than I can this year. Am I going out on a limb?
No,
with that?
You're not, and I think it's a testament of our program. You and I had the privilege of interviewing kids for the Alex C. Sports Foundation Scholarship last few years. Sean Bland's been in on those interviews, and what things that we've been blown away about when we are all in there deliberating on who we feel like deserved the scholarship is that every one of them that walked in there deserved it. He's hard. I didn't want to be in there anymore. It's so hard. You had so many great kids, boys and girls. So you're right. This group, that's why they won. That's, you go back and look at that class that had 44 wins, Randy. I can go back and name almost every kid on the team. You know why? Because it wasn't about me on there. It was about them. And they knew that everybody had to play together to have a chance to win. Well, you look at all these kids, I can sit there and run off the starters right now. Mm-hmm. And most of the guys on the roster of that team, and it's because they all contributed. Now, some had maybe bigger roles than others, but for the most part, on any given night, Tyrus Jones comes up, makes 3 or 4 plays that wins a game, or your right side of your offensive line grows up over the course of the year, and you see them playing as good as that left side's been playing for 3 years, and you have an emergence of a running back, and Tyree matures over 18 months. I mean, to go from where he went. It's his first start as a quarterback, kind of like our first broadcast. You go back and go, whoa, my Lord, then those guys ain't got a future in that at all. They need to put that down. But, over time and practice and doing things, you get comfortable with it, and it just becomes second nature. And, one thing that Danny Horn and every athletic program at that high school teaches is, boy, you're going to play with class and you're going to show up. And Danny, I was at practice three days that week of the semifinal game, and he closed every practice with the same thing. He said, win or lose, we're going to walk off that field with class, and we're going to shake your hand, and we're going to do the right thing. We're going to do the right thing because we represent this city. It ain't about you. Win or lose, we're going to do the right thing.
And I took my hat to Spanish Fort with that. One thing I can say for those kids, and it didn't go unnoticed, is how many of their kids made an effort before they went and hugged everybody and went to the middle of the field to come over there and greet our kids on the sideline. I don't know if you noticed that, but I noticed
They know how much they left on the field.
And so it was a tough loss, and again, a wonderful senior class, and looking forward to continuing on. And next year's got a lot of promise. New faces that we'll see, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But next man up, that's the beauty of football. It's the beauty of high school.
Somebody else has opportunity.
I think that's why people enjoy college so much. You get a Tom Brady on your team if you're the Patriots, or you get a Cam Newton on your team if you're Carolina. You got a pretty good chance of winning for a long time.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt.
In high school ball, if you keep Tyree for about 8 or 10 years, you'd like to.
Oh man, the future would be so bright.
But it's not any fun for the other kids.
It's not.
And I think that's the beauty of your turn's
Somebody's
gone.
Gonna step up
Somebody
next year,
else's turn, and we got a really good class. We got a lot to start with, and
I've got to say one thing, and you said it off this, and how it's the next man up. You know, our kids, being around that all-star team, taking them to Georgia Dome. I'll say this: they were enamored by being in the Dome, but man, they wanted to win. And when they didn't win. You know, my wife wanted a picture of me and Braden on the field, and you've seen that picture.
Yeah,
he ain't smiling, man. I mean, he's like, yeah. I said, bro, you played in Georgia? No, I don't care. I mean, he did care, and it's the experience. But at the bottom line is like, you know, that's Dable over there, man.
Yeah.
You know, we don't, you know, and Dable's been preached the same thing about us. He said, hey, that's Alex City over there, man. We got to – so that's the passion. You see it at a young age, the kids that really want to play the game. I think that's good. 256-234-6221.
Love to hear from you. Know we're up against another break, Brett. When we come back, we'll run down the Super 7 state championships. We'll head over tomorrow morning. Got a unification game at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon after lunch, and that's a special needs game that we'll have. And I think it started a couple of years ago, and we enjoy going over and covering that. The 7A state championship game starts tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. You can tune that one in here on Kowaliga Country 97.5. We'll hub all of the AHSA radio network right out of Alexander City, and Brett and I will be on the call to over 20 radio stations tomorrow night throughout the state with that 7A state championship game. We'll come back on Thursday. We'll have 3A, 1A, 5A. And then on Friday, we'll have 4A, 2A, and 6A championship will be the nightcap at 7 o'clock on Friday night. And that'll pit Clay Chalkville against Spanish Fort. There's some good matchups throughout this thing. Boy, that's 2 14-0 teams. A Clay Chalkville team that's won 29 consecutive games here in the state of Alabama.
Something's
going to have to give.
Tyler Johnson hadn't lost.
I know it. What a storyline.
I mean, hey, something's going to have to give. I mean, they both can't walk out of there winners. So going to be fun as we head over there tomorrow. Stay tuned. More of the Lake Martin Sports Roundup presented by JR's right after this.
The world is ever changing. Make sure your choices are the right.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Sports Blitz Late Martin Sports Roundup Show presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill. Brett Pritchard, Randy Lee. Randy will be here. One more segment, and then Daniel Bland will close the program out. I finally got over the hump of calling him his dad on the air a bunch. So I gave Sean a lot of credit throughout the years here at Benjamin Russell as being a pretty good offensive lineman until I got it straightened out and I started calling him Daniel, the real offensive lineman that we had there. But we'll have Daniel up here to close out the show. Sean, he wasn't disappointed. I was giving him props as being a pretty good blocker out there.
Well, listen, if and you'll say the same thing. If our kids end up playing like this one, you can call me whatever you want to call me.
Oh,
I told a good friend Aunt Gray, that's Tyree's dad. I said, buddy, I got a lot to do to get my little two-year-old up to the level of what I just watched over the last several years.
Good luck for all of the above. So
256-234-6221. Brett, which game you looking most forward to here in the playoffs?
Oh man, there's going to be some good ones up there, and when we look at it and.
7A I know Hoover doesn't make it through. Hoover had a 14 out of 15 year span that they made it into the state championship game. A lot of those in the 6A classification. Spain Park made it the 1 year that Hoover did it, but Spain Park didn't defeat Hoover to get there. Hoover had lost earlier on in the playoffs during that stretch. But, just your thoughts. Spain Park taking on a McGill-Toolen program, which is a huge storyline here in this playoff run, is 4 teams from the Mobile area make it in. 3 of those private schools down there, with the largest one being McGill-Toolen.
Well, I mean, that just tells you about the richness of that area down there in Baldwin County, Mobile County. They just always produce a lot of talent, always have great football teams, and you see how heavily dominated they are as a presence in Tuscaloosa this year. I think, there's a lot of private schools down there, but there's a lot of public schools that do really well. I mean, if you look at McGill-Toolen this year, their only loss was to Blunt. I mean, and that Blunt team was in that Region 1 down there with Saraland, Spanish Fort. Spanish Fort narrowly escaped Blunt, just like they narrowly escaped us, almost very similar. I mean, Blunt loses by a field goal. We lose by 4, and it's just part of it. Just, when you go down there and you play a team like a Saraland, that's got Jeff Kelly as a coach, or you got Spanish Fort down there, it's got Ben Blackman as a coach, or you got Blunt, or you got any of those teams, you're going to have to bring your A game, man, to come out with a win.
One thing that turned my head, McGill-Toolen taking down Auburn in week 3?
Yes.
In the playoffs, 42-3.
Blowout.
Auburn's had some of those games where they get blown out over the last few years, but to lose like that to a team late in the playoffs after Auburn had really turned the corner, I thought was playing pretty good football. McGill-Toolen, I'm excited to see them. Jason Smith, who had the long touchdown catch for Auburn Saturday, was a standout there. They never could get over the hump with Jason at quarterback. Always thought that they may out of the South during that stretch, but they never could. So the first time you and I will actually be able to see this program.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of their kids in championship, and not in championship, but all-star events, and like you said, Jason Smith and the Alabama-Mississippi all-star game and all that, but finally get to see this team out of all these years, to see them in person. So we've heard a lot about them, but never been able to see them in person. So it'll be very interesting. So we always enjoy it, and we'll run down the slate, Randy, tomorrow night. It'll be, as you look at it, that unified game, Lee County versus Hewitt-Trussville in that game, and then the 7A championship, as you just alluded to, those 2 teams, Spain Park, McGill-Toolen. Spain Park been to one other championship game in the past, and they were defeated by Prattville that year, so they're still looking for their first state title in school history. On Thursday, they'll start off with the 3A championship, and it will be Tommy Wood and John Holder calling that, and it'll be Bayside Academy, Phil Lazenby at 11-3 versus Piedmont, 13-1. They'll get that kicked off at 11 o'clock.
Piedmont has won a state championship, I think 4 or 5 years ago, as they took down Jackson, and that state title game is a very good one, close one all the way up to the end, but the storyline there for this local community is Phil Lazenby, who was a great coach here, took 2 of our teams to state championship games, one in 97 and one in 2000. An outstanding coach. He has got a defensive coordinator that was here at this program for a long time, and Mark Lassiter. So, just a feel-good pick. You and I won't be calling that game, so it doesn't matter what we say. But
on the field.
So I can cheer for one team or another if I'm not on the call. So underneath my breath, I'll be cheering for Bayside there in that one.
Absolutely. And following that up at 3 o'clock, it'll be Maplesville and Cedar Bluff. Maplesville 12-1, Cedar Bluff 13-1, and Luke Robinson and Jay Jeffcoat will be calling that football game, the 1A championship at 3. And Maplesville, good luck. Cedar Bluff's had a great year, but Maplesville, when they get to these championship games, they know how to win. It's going to be a good football game.
Cedar Bluff over the years, the one team. It doesn't mean this one's going to stay close, but athletically, coming out of that southern part of the state, Maplesville, to me, is always outclassed whoever they'll see on the opposite end. And to me, Cedar Bluff, though, matches up best with them over the years that I've seen, especially in basketball. You can tell the athletes in the lower classifications just by going and watching these state basketball tournaments. Right. And Cedar Bluff's always got great athletes.
They do, and that's going to be a heck of a game. Looking forward to that. You and I will have the call Thursday night. Mortimer Jordan and St. Paul's. You and I have seen this St. Paul's team a couple of years ago as they came to the Sportsplex. Had Trey Williams in there, had Casher, had lineman. It's over at Alabama. So St. Paul's just continues to find ways to win and battle through a tough bracket. They're 12-2. They take on Mortimer Jordan 13-1 in the 5A championship.
Mortimer Jordan's had a nice run here in the playoffs. They've really got things going. Last week they got down by 16 with like 8 minutes to go, and they come back and win that game in overtime. So Mortimer Jordan got a lot of things going for them, but I've seen enough of St. Paul's and I've seen enough of McPherson back there at running back over the last 2 years to know good luck stopping them offensively. I would definitely favor St. Paul's there in that championship game.
No doubt. Until you knock them off, they are the team to beat for sure. Friday, December 4th, will close out the Super 7. Will start with the Class 4A championship game. Again, it'll be Tommy Wood and John Holder. Leeds and Fayette County. Fayette County 10-4, but a team that's playing really good football right now. They'll have their hands full with a 12-2 Leeds team. Leeds defeated Munford in the playoffs to avenge that loss earlier in the season to Munford by 1 point. So, Munford was that team that you watched and you thought, man, they're catching fire, but Leeds puts them out, and they'll meet Fayette County in the 4A.
If you look at the scores the last 7 or 8 weeks, I'm not sure there's many teams up and down classifications that's any better than Leeds. Darrell Marshall's as good an athlete as we've got in the state. They've got, I think, maybe the top running back in the state, Trey Nation, who had 260-something yards rushing and 7 touchdowns last week against Munford in the semis. Good luck with Leeds. They're very well coached, too. They got one of the top coaches in the state. I mean, nobody's going to ever get him out of there. But Keith Etheridge is about as good as they get.
Does somebody go after him in one of these higher classifications and try to put a lot of money in front of him, Randy? Man, I'm telling you, man, he's been consistent since you and I have been calling this for 8 years. He seems to be there almost every year, and I can go back and talk about a lot of these teams from the Champions Challenge to, they've probably been – one of the most called teams that you and I have had outside of Hoover.
I'll say this for him. He impresses me like Danny does. He doesn't say a lot, but you watch the way his kids play on the field and you watch the physical brand that they play. I mean, why wouldn't they? But he's a Leeds graduate. He's kind of a Leeds guy.
At home.
And if you're getting, supplemented like you should, which I'm sure he is as many times he's been in championship game, why do you want to leave? Because clearly, they're going to have the athletes that they need each year to get back. They've been there probably 5 or 6 years out of the last 8.
They really have. Class 2A, it'll be Luke Robinson and Jay Jeffcoat again at 3 o'clock on Friday. Elba and Fife. Elba makes it back. That Elba team fell short last year in the finals. Was it against this Fife team they played?
I think so.
It's a rematch of Fife, exactly who it is. So Elba gets back. Both of them 13-1, man, and looking forward to that. Elba jumped out to a lead last year on Fife, and Fife fought back and won that football game. So good football game at 3 o'clock on Friday. Then you and I will have Class 6A, and you and I have talked about it. We'll see the Spanish Fort Toros one more time versus Clay Chalkville, and that's going to be a great football game because both of them are 14-0. You look at the quarterback for Spanish Fort and what a tremendous story that is, Tyler Johnson, and battled back from a knee injury that you could clearly see that still going through the playoffs, been a grind, still a little bit gimpy, but man, just so tough to battle through. He committed to UAB this week to play football. So Clay Chalkville, you and I called that game last year against Sarah Land, Ty Pigram, that core wide receivers. Man, it's going to be a great football game.
I wish we were there clearly, but now that we're not, This is an outstanding matchup. It really is a special matchup here in the state. Both those teams 14-0. Clay Chalkville 29-game winning streak. Both of the quarterbacks that were named the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game are leading both of these teams.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Ty Pigram, who accounted for over 50 touchdowns last year at Clay Chalkville back. He's a special talent. He's a 5'9", 5'10", 180-pound guy that can throw it all over the field. And he's got, Nico, that tells you the recruitnik I am. Nico, it's not Nico Johnson. That's old linebacker.
That's from Andalusia.
Luke will be texting me here shortly. But they got several receivers that are high-end prospects, one that's committed to Alabama currently. And we'll see them all. They've given up a lot of points this year. I think Spanish Fort will get theirs. And from what I saw this past week, Clay Chalkville's going to get theirs too. So I would expect more of a 38-35 type game in that one, which will be a lot of fun to call and a lot of fun to watch.
It will be. And it's Nico Collins.
Yeah.
I wanted to say Williams. It's Nico Collins. But I had Nico Johnson on the brain too because he ended up playing
TJ Simmons too, as Luke goes on ahead and chimes in quickly. Both of these guys are 4-star athletes, I believe.
They are. Like I said, the whole receiving core for Clay Chalkville, very good, led by Ty Pigram, who's very good at quarterback. He's not a very big kid at all, very diminutive as far as his size, but don't let size fool you, man. He's got this team with 29 wins in a row, so it's going to be an interesting ball game in that 6A championship. That's your breakdown of the Super 7. That starts tomorrow. You make sure you tune us in on the HSA Radio Network right here on 97.5. Kowaliga Country is one of our affiliates and the hub of the HSA. Take our break here, and we come back. It will be Daniel Bland closing out the show with me, and a lot to talk about here with Daniel as he is a spectacular senior here, and he adds into wrestling season coming up shortly. Stay tuned. More of the Lake Martin Sports Roundup presented by JR's right after this.
If you're looking for
No, it's time.
Yeah, they came out.
I mean, going into it, that we were a lot bigger than